Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a slightly different approach on the first video, and instead of just building the team for Game Week 1, we're going to consider a bit more about chip strategy and how that could shape our opening plans. We're considering the big decisions, particularly around bench boost, whether we want to use that in Game Week 1 or Game Week 2, and the key factors that could influence our decision. We'll also look at potential opportunities for the triple captain and free hit chips, and then try and build that into a cohesive plan for the opening part of the season. The aim is basically we can build the strongest Game Week 1 team, while also making sure that we're set up well to follow through on the weeks that follow. Before we want to start the video, just want to say big thanks for all the support on the last video. Feedback and reception has been really positive, so big thanks for that. And for this video, if you do enjoy it, please consider liking and subscribing. Follow me on Twitter or X as well for daily posts about FPL movements. This video, let's see if we can maybe get to 100 likes. But yeah, let's get straight into it. So here we're going to basically start with a bench boost 1 draft that I've been considering. So for a bench boost 1, it's different to just an ordinary game week where you aren't using the bench boost, because effectively you need to start the season with 15 players who you can be confident will start and have a positive impact on the team. So no different really to the first video, where Arsenal, in terms of goalkeepers, are the strongest to start with. They got a great Game Week 1 fixture against Coventry. Clean sheet odds are really strong. A little bit harder against Villa, Chelsea, and Sunderland, but they aren't too bad fixtures. And I'll show you in a second how this could rotate nicely. So David Raya, 30% owned, 6 million. He's a good buy into the Arsenal defence. Guaranteed start. Not going to be any problems about him potentially being rotated. Second goalkeeper I want to be choosing for a bench boost 1 team is the Man United goalkeeper Lemons. So Man United starting away at Hull, followed by Ipswich, Everton, and then Game Week 4 is a bit tougher against Man City, and then followed up by Fulham. He's only 5 million, 20% owned. It's not too bad really. Last season they had a big impact on the Man United defence, really improved them. So yeah, both these goalkeepers going in. It is obviously a bit more expensive than I'd be ideally looking for, spending 11 million already on 2 goalkeepers, but you follow me through on this video, we'll see we'll get a good team going. So starting on the defence, first player particularly I want to be considering is Christian Mosquera. The reason I want to be looking at Mosquera for this team is 5.5 million, so he's cheaper than the rest of the Arsenal defence, who are coming at 6 million plus really. As well, Saliba's going to be out for the start of the season, so it means there's a centre-back partnership there to be formed with Gabriel. Gabriel being owned at 8 million is quite expensive, particularly when you want to be considering some of the other big assets you want to be having in the team. 5.5 million is good. If we were to look on NextXI as well, which is a new FPL app for this season, and we just have a look at Mosquera's data. So I'll show you how this works. Effectively, this is the stat page for NextXI. If we were to filter on defenders, change the data type so per 90. And then if we were to search for Mosquera here you can see 8.67 DEFCON per 90. His expected goal involvement is 0.7. It's not really that high. If we were to consider how he stacks up against the other Arsenal defenders, so here click Arsenal. In terms of DEFCON, second best for the Arsenal defence last season, just behind Gabriel, who we've obviously mentioned is a lot more expensive this season. In terms of expected goal involvements, not that high. You could therefore maybe consider someone like a Calafiori, for example. He's also 5.5 million. The only issue with Calafiori is that although he's a left back and he's a bit more attacking, as you see in the data, Hincapi could potentially come in. So immediately got a little bit of doubt, even in Game Week 1, could Hincapi start? Could Calafiori start? Currently, Mosquera you would expect to be the starting centre back in Game Week 1, unless Arsenal were to go and sign another centre back. They have been linked to John Stones and Ezri Konsa. But nothing's materialised yet, so currently we'll put in Mosquera for the draft here. Next player I want to have a look at for the team would be Nico Williams of Nottingham Forest. So 5 million, really attacking fullback, or now wing back for Forest last season. 2 goals, 3 assists, just under 6 XGI, so he did underperform just slightly. Really positive. I think under Glasner this season, using that 3-4-3 formation, I think we'll be seeing Williams up in that left wing back position, Again, forward into the box potentially on maybe a couple of set pieces. I'm not too sure. I'll have to do a bit more research on that. But even so, the signs under pre-season so far have been really good. If we just have a look at even his data on here, so if it was just to reset this, for example, search Nico Williams, there you go, 0.17 XGI. His DEFCON's not as good, so just 7 DEFCON, it's a bit below that threshold for a defender being 10. But 5 million start at home to Leeds, that's a good start. Fixtures in between 2 and particularly 4 a little bit tougher, but game week 5 against Coventry, yeah, that's okay. So the next defender I want to have a look at for Bench Boost 1 is going to be Vardiol. So last season, Vardiol didn't get much of a look in, mainly because he was disrupted a lot through injuries, but this season he's been priced at 5.5 million. Now, if we compare that to the other Man City defenders, you're looking at Gay of 6 million, Nico Riley 6.5, Nunes 6 million. So he's a little bit cheaper in that 0.5 million, although it's maybe not much. We can stretch that a long way in this Bench Boost 1 team, particularly because we have to have 15 starters. He's just about to sign a big new deal with Man City, and he's been described as by Maresca as a key player for Man City. So early signs are looking promising in terms of his potential involvement this season, whether it's centre back alongside Gay or maybe even left back, and maybe Nico Riley goes into midfield somewhere. Obviously, we'll be looking at pre-season for signs whether he can be starting, but early doors looking promising, getting up to fitness again. Hopefully, Vardiol can be a starter. 5.5 million. That's really good. And let's say we have a look at his data on here on Next 11. Search for Vardiol. Last season, 0.19 XGI. DEFCON again, looking at 7, so a little bit below, but for the opening start for Man City, got Bournemouth at home under a new manager, followed by Crystal Palace, also a new manager, Coventry, Man United, Sunderland. It's a good opening start really for Man City. Combination of new teams with managers with teams with new managers and newly promoted sides. Hopefully, Vardiol can get a look in here. Next player I want to have a look at for the Bench Boost 1 would be Luke Shaw. So 4.5 million, another Man United defender will be choosing here. Again, 20% owned, that's quite high really for what you'd be expecting from Luke Shaw. Last season, he did manage to start every game. His output wasn't that great. He's getting a bit older, so physically can't get up, that left-hand side as much. Only 1 goal, 1 assist, roughly in line with his XGI. But in terms of Man United defence, I'd say it's looking good. I mean, you could potentially choose a Maguire if you wanted a more expensive defender with a bit more of a DEFCON potential to increase that floor, but you're looking at 5 million here. I think while Man United haven't made any other signings in terms of defence, particularly left back area, I think Luke Shaw's looking pretty certain. So yeah, you should be okay with him starting the season. Now, final defender to want to be picking here is going to be a cheap 4.0 million defender, and we're going to look at some of the Ipswich players who are going to be starting their season against Sunderland. So potentially Diop, he's an option in terms of a DEFCON centre back maybe. So if we have a look at his data from last year, 7 DEFCON. Now, because obviously when playing for Fulham, be playing for Ipswich, you'll be on the back foot a little bit more, maybe a few more defensive involvements. We could see that potentially that figure increase, or someone who has had previous involvement for Ipswich is O'Shea. Now, he's a little bit more, I'd say, involved than a Diop. His XGI here is only two assists though in the season he did play, and he had 35 starts. So based on last season and his previous season in the Premier League, 35 starts, I think 4.0 million, you could probably put him in here, but say likewise, it could be a Diop, for example. Now, going into midfield, I don't think we need to explain this much more, but Bruno Fernandes definitely goes in there. More of a premium option, obviously. He's increased 3 winning this year, but his output is excellent. I think it's roughly for, I think it's about 0.6. Yeah, 0.68 expected goal moments per 90 minutes. His DEFCON now because obviously under Carrick he's more advanced in that 10 position rather than Amrin when he's playing, I think, as part of that 8, you know, alongside what was Casemiro at the time. So his defcon's not as good. It's a bit below that 12 threshold for a midfielder, but I say I don't really need to explain why Bruno Fernandes is a good pick. Penalties, free kicks, corners. Last season broke the Premier League assist record. Obviously, don't expect him to repeat that this season, but potential is there, and say the fixtures are really good. Second midfield I'll be choosing is Dominic Szoboszlai. So again, a little bit like Fernandes, a prominent role last season. Free kicks, corners. We've already seen against Sunderland in pre-season he's got a goal. I believe he might have got an assist as well. The only potential downside with Szoboszlai is whether he has penalties. So obviously Alexander Isak should be fit this season to start. Whether Isak takes penalties, it's a season now behind on goals, whether he wants to get a bit of confidence in early doors. Or it's Szoboszlai. Last season we saw when Salah wasn't playing, Szoboszlai did take the penalties. So we'll have to try and get a bit of information in pre-season whether we can maybe get Szoboszlai and Isak on the pitch at the same time and see who might take a penalty in that scenario. But yeah, 7 million, really cheap. Szoboszlai can go in midfield. Next player I wanted to have a look at was Elliot Anderson. So a little bit similar to the Game Week 1 draft. Elliot Anderson will be in the team here. I think 6.5 million. As I said earlier, with Guardiola, Man City start to the season is really good. I think there will definitely be goals here, some clean sheets as well. Anderson last year was the best midfielder for DEFCON. I believe he got 13.9, so almost 2 DEFCON above that threshold you need for a midfielder. His expected goal involvements were decent as well for Forest, although he did have a little bit of set piece play, so that probably slightly overinflating that figure of 0.21 there. Now, you could counter that with an argument that in the Man City team, obviously you play with higher quality attackers, especially with Erling Haaland up front. An Anderson through ball, Haaland, maybe we'll see a couple more assists. I'm not going to get too excited here, but I think for his price, 6.5 million. Potentially Rodri is leaving Man City to join Real Madrid. I think he's injured irrespective of those, so as long as Anderson's back from, he's back from the World Cup, as long as he's back from his break and holiday, and he's got integrated into Maresca's side early on, hopefully he should be starting Game Week 1. I think that's one to monitor, but early signs are positive. Now, another player that maybe isn't looking so certain, but for the team here, we'll include him, is Iliman Ndiaye. 6 million, Everton. Everton have got, I'd say, an okay start to the season in terms of fixtures. Palace, Bournemouth, teams with new managers. Man United, Spurs, a little bit more difficult. Ipswich in Game Week 5, those looking good. The only concern with Ndiaye is that he has been linked with a move to Saudi Arabia. So, again, this is a bit of a liquid situation. Therefore, we need to revisit this in a week's time and evaluate whether Ndiaye is still a feasible pick for Game Week 1. We'll have to do so. But his outputs, I say, it's pretty good. Penalties. He has that little bit of an edge across other midfielders of that price range. Say 0.36 XGI per 90. Without penalties, it is a little bit lower, 0.17. But he is quite a good DEFCON midfielder. He's 9.16 average. So it's a little bit below that 12, but last season I owned him a fair few times and he did quite okay. And a couple of times he did get that DEFCON. So it's a well-rounded midfielder, I think, in terms of potential routes to points. If, for example, Ndiaye was to leave, or if you didn't like Ndiaye, similar price points in the Everton side are James Garner. So he's only 6 million. Now he's on, I believe, corners and free kicks. So you could consider him at 6 million. Last season he did quite well not to take sort of the total points from last season as a reliable metric, but he's currently out with an injury. So whether he's back for Game Week 1 in time, we'll have to evaluate. Could impact his pre-season involvement, but for a perspective of a DEFCON midfield, if maybe that's more of your sort of persuasion, then Garner's definitely one to consider. Say DEFCON of 12.08 last season per 90. It's above the threshold. His XGI was quite good as well, 0.22. So it's above what Ndiaye's was. Ndiaye's non-penalty XGI. So I think Garner's maybe one to consider, but currently if he's injured, then it's not looking good. I'll have to reevaluate close to the time. The fifth midfielder I want to take a look at is one that not many people have considered. He's only 2% owned, but it's Kevin Schade for Brentford. So last season, Brentford had a really good start to the season. Well, continued it really throughout. Dropped off slightly towards the end, but good start game for Brentford in terms of fixtures. Spurs, Leeds, Sunderland, Bournemouth. Last season, 14 expected goal involvements, 8 goals, 5 assists, so in line. Likewise, the season before, 11 goals, 4 assists. I think he's got a little bit of potential penalty share, whether Thiago starts every game, because Brentford have made a few more investments in attack. They've got Callum Wilson, so maybe there's a little bit of penalty share there for Schade, but I think also on the flip side, they did sign Jadon Anthony from Burnley, so I think this is one to monitor. He might potentially therefore see some reduced minutes, but in terms of his expected goal involvement, Schade's, I think, is probably an underrated midfielder for 6 million. We just have a look at his data, but have a look in terms of Brentford using the NextXI app here, excluding midfielder. So we were to filter on minutes. So you're going to advanced filters, search by minutes, and then just filter by 1,000 minutes. Here's the second best midfielder in terms of expected output, just below Dango. I believe Dango is Wataru Dango is 6.5 million. If I search, yeah, 6.5. So Shah's 0.5 million cheaper, and as I'll show you in a second why with that extra 0.5. But temporarily, I'll put Shah there. In terms of potential other midfielders, I think obviously as pre-season transfer windows going on, maybe if Bruno Guimaraes was to stay at Newcastle, maybe you could consider him. They do have Liverpool start, so maybe not the best in terms of bench boost one, but I think he could be on penalties for Newcastle now that Anthony Gordon's left, so one to consider. Another option that I've looked over a little bit in defence and midfield is Sunderland. So Sunderland do have some good players that maybe you want to consider for bench boost one team, because they've started the season against Ipswich. One such player is Enzo Lefebvre, 6 million last season. Penalties, I believe, a couple of set pieces, but he did quite good. His expected output was just over 11. So for a newly promoted side last season, is obviously that's quite good, and obviously Sunderland, were really strong for finishing a European spot. Whether he can repeat that this season, find out. But 6 million, that's potential substitute there for Schade or Njai. And likewise, as I missed for defenders, you could look at, I'd say, probably a Ballard. For example, his DEFCON's quite strong, 5 million. So he's okay priced. He's maybe on a little bit more expensive. I maybe wouldn't look at Michele, although his output was particularly good last season. I think he's probably a little bit expensive. Maybe just have a look at Sunderland defenders here and what they can do in terms of DEFCON. Ballard was the best one. Alderete, Michele. Expected goal involvements, Michele was edging it, but Ballard, 0.01 of a difference. I say that's nothing really to make a key decision there. Potentially, therefore, you could put Ballard in, whether you want to take out Vardy or if you want more secure minutes, etc. Anyway, getting on to the forward line. No surprise, we'll put Haaland in there. And then the other forwards was looking at for a bench boost one team would be Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Last season, he had a really good start, really good middle of the season. Leeds, he's on penalties. Whether he can repeat that this season is maybe a little bit harder. Typically with Calvert-Lewin, is whether he's fit or not. Last season, though, 0.55 expected goal involvements, 0.39 without the penalties there. 6 million, I think, is a good option. Leeds, good start to the season. No major fixtures to be concerned about. Forest, Brentford, Brighton, Newcastle, Palace. Only until game week 6, then the fixtures take a little bit of a downturn. Arsenal, Man United, but for the first 5 game weeks, like 6 million, I think you could definitely put him in there. And then that leaves us with 5.5 million in terms of a third forward. Now, obviously, not Dominic Solanke, but in terms of 5.5 million forwards, there's not many great options. A lot of them are 6 million, so maybe we're looking at another Everton forward, whether it's Beto or Barry. Maybe get a bit of indication from Moyes who might prefer Jorginho Ruta. Now, interesting that transfer news this morning is that Danny Welbeck will possibly be going to Chelsea. So if he's going to Chelsea, that frees up a penalty taker for Brighton. Whether Ruta would assume that role, maybe at 5.5 million, you could consider him. Aston Villa's not the best fixture, but 5.5 million is not a great haul of options. Delap maybe wants to monitor in terms of he leaves Chelsea because of Welbeck joining. So maybe if he goes to Ipswich, you could consider him at 5.5. Muniz as well. Interesting. There's a lot of favouritism to Robbie for Sunderland at 6 million, but the expected goal involvements for Muniz and Robbie are roughly the same. There's not much difference, but as you see here, 0.8% of all managers selecting him. Whether he can sort of get into the Fulham team and have a big impact this season is hard to tell. Obviously, Raul Jimenez has left, so there is currently a void for a striker, but as you see last season, only 10 starts, a lot of injuries. Season before that, 8 starts, but he did get 8 goals. I think, again, let's see how they perform in pre-season, whether there are incomings for striker position for Fulham. I do expect that, but I think for a bench boost one side, yeah, let's have a look. I'd say maybe earmark a Beto or Jorginho Ruta. Potentially Costulas. I think always the problem though with Brighton is whether they can get a start. So I think let's put something like this roughly for the time being, and then consider that maybe as a bench boost one team. Now, on the other hand, if you weren't looking at a bench boost one team, but you want to maybe look at bench boost two, there are a couple of differences that I'd be making to this team. So one of the main attractions of a bench boost two team is that Coventry play Hull City in game week 2, and Hull City last season were the second worst expected goals conceded in the Championship, only better than Sheffield Wednesday, who finished at the very bottom. So if I was to reevaluate this team and maybe potential changes I'd be making, is potentially you want to be getting at least 3 of the Coventry players in, which would be a goalkeeper, a forward, and a midfielder. So for Coventry, the players I sort of like that you could potentially choose from. Currently, there are, where's Coventry? There they are. So you got Van Uwijk, I'm still pronouncing his name wrong. Now, 8 assists last season. Or you got Bobby Thomas, who's a little bit more defensive contribution inclined, but did still get some assists and goals, both 4 million. I think Van Uwijk does have some free kicks. I'm not entirely sure, but you could put him in there. Currently in the game, there's Dovin or Wilson. Now, I believe on this basis, Dovin would be the starter, but I think Coventry is still after Carl Rushworth from Brighton. He's priced at 4.5 million. So I think let's just wait and see on that, whether that develops. And if Carl Rushworth does come in, then we can reevaluate the squad here. And likewise, in terms of a forward I'd be picking, I would choose for Coventry Haji Wright. Last season, I believe it was 17 goals for Coventry against a Hull City in game week 2. I think that could be really promising. In terms of any other particular players I'd want to be considering, that we have 1 million spare in the bank, so we could potentially improve Luke Shaw. So taking someone out who's maybe not defensive contribution minded or that much output, we could have a look at a James Hill. Now, obviously in game week 1, Man City away is not a great start, but Everton at home, you could bench boost that. Yeah, I think so. And then in terms of sort of how that would impact your game week 1 team here, I mean, obviously be looking at Raya starting, Mascara, Vardiol, Williams, and then playing a 5 midfield, Calvert-Lewin, Ireland up front. So a 3-5-2 formation. So you can then see how that would impact your team going forward. If you then to look at the list and the FDR, fixture difficulty rating, say you've got what do I need to, hang on. I need to take out, say something was looking wrong there. need to take out Raya, put in Lamans for Man United. So yeah, looking at a potential bench boost 2 team, you'd have 2 keepers against Hull, Ipswich, Mascara, Aston Villa, Hill, Coventry against Hull. The only downside potentially is Nico Williams away at Liverpool. Might be a bit more difficult, but I think otherwise the fixtures are okay there. And really the main reason you want to be sort of using that bench boost early on is just to be getting that out of the way. Ideally, you sort of want to frame it in your mind that you're thinking of game week 1 is that first wild card. It's the time when you got the most opportunity to plan and consider sort of different data points. And then bench boost 1 or bench boost 2, you can load that game week 1 team with some cheap players, particularly bench boost 2 here, where you can just get that Coventry team in early for what 13.5. Potentially, if you didn't want Haji Wright and you wanted another Coventry centre back, you could get Thomas in. That would increase it down to only 12 million, which is basically then you pack it into that bench boost. A lot cheaper. Now, in terms of a bench boost 1 or bench boost 2, we can take these teams forward. Now, in triple captain, I think you'd want to be looking at Erling Haaland against Coventry in game week 3. There are different fixtures you could be choosing for Haaland for a triple captain. You could look at game week 7, Ipswich, or a game week 16 against Hull. I think the main issues here is that game week 7, it's sandwiched in between match days 2 and match days 3 of the Champions League. And especially bear in mind Man City have got Liverpool in the game week before and Aston Villa in the game week away in those 2 Champions League games. Something will have to give somewhere. And I think that could potentially be Erling Haaland against Ipswich, who could be taken out and rested for that fixture. So that's one to consider about triple captain. And likewise with Hull, it's not a bad fixture, but obviously it's a great fixture in terms of difference. The only concern I'd have is that it's within that December Christmas run, whether Man City could have any fixtures that are sort of pushed back, or is there sort of any developments in, I think, the League Cup that could potentially cause a bit of congestion around that period, whether again Haaland could be rotated, benched, and therefore triple captain against the Hull when he's not playing is obviously redundant. I think therefore game week 3 against Coventry could be good. Say just depends on his World Cup fitness coming back. He should be integrated into the team by then, so I think either way everyone's probably going to have Erling Haaland to start with. It's simply then a decision game week 3. If you want to use that triple captain, you can activate it, and if you don't want to use it, simply hold on to it and use it a later game week either on Haaland or Bruno Fernandes, Palmer, etc. Now, what I do want to consider is free hit. I think a popular strategy that could potentially be used is free hit in game week 4. The main reason is being that Man City and Man United play each other in game week 4, and so as you can see here, in this potential game week 1 draft, you'd have Lamans, a Bruno Fernandes, Anderson, Vardiol, Haaland, or if you even use the other draft, you could have then an additional Luke Shaw. So you'd have 6 players playing each other. Ideally, obviously don't want that. And if we just have a look at the fixtures for game week 4 here in the fixture difficulty rating, we've got some other fixtures that players to be low owned. I think there'll be some Brighton, particularly Chelsea against Hull. I think there'll be lots of players that aren't big owned that we could target in a free hit for. Crystal Palace against Ipswich, Liverpool against Fulham. I say there's lots of different options. I think in terms of a free hit 4 team, if we were to go into the Next 11 and use their team planner app, if we use this as sort of an idea of what we can maybe do for a game week 4, just to activate that, if we're sort of looking at a David Raya, Gabriel, I think, Timber. Obviously, he's currently flagged because he's injured, but should be okay. I think Kinski as a backup is okay there, 4.5. Munoz not to be mixed with the Liverpool one, but Daniel Munoz for Crystal Palace. Canva, the Crystal Palace defender as well, really good on DEFCON. terms of midfield, then potentially looking at sort of Cole Palmer, Rodgers. Who else we got? Verts, Szoboszlai, Sarr, and then up front, I think João Pedro. Just want to monitor in terms of minutes, potentially with Welbeck joining, and also Alexander Isak. So I think that's roughly sort of the team I'd be looking at. If there was sort of other players you might want to be considering, probably put a 4.5 million forward in there, and a 5.5 million defender. It could be someone like maybe I think Spurs have got good fixtures that particular week. Pedro Porro, maybe he'd be back from the World Cup and integrated well into the squad then. So yeah, against Everton, I don't think I'd take either against him over an Arsenal defender against Sunderland or Palace against Ipswich, but someone then, say, a 4.5 million forward there, whoever that would be. But yeah, I think that's something you could roughly then look at for a free hit 4 team. And the reason you really want to be sort of doing that is because it'll smooth out the amount of free transfers you have to use. So ideally, at the start of the season, you're sort of acquiring lots of information about players. You don't really want to be hitting your team early on with transfers. And in this way, in the free hit 4, you can avoid using those transfers on a Man United or Man City. Get in these Chelsea players, these Crystal Palace players against the newly promoted sides. And then game week 5, you're back to roughly a normal looking fixture run where United have got, who is it again? Fulham, City have got Sunderland. So you're kind of smoothing that out. And then potentially, then you have got an international break after game week 5. It's a long international break this time, 3 weeks. But game week 6, you come back, a wild card, reevaluate from there. So, yeah, in terms of today's video, that's what we want to particularly look at. The team has just reverted back. But yeah, if that was any help, obviously do let me know. Bench Boost 1, Bench Boost 2, some of those different drafts you can maybe consider. Obviously, the transfer market's open, pre-season's happening, so we're getting lots of information about lots of different players. These drafts will change. I'll do another video at a time and refine it a bit more slightly for the new players and teams maybe want to consider. But yeah, if it was any help, like, subscribe, let me know in the comments if you liked it, if you've got any questions about particular players you want to consider, and hopefully see you in the next video. Thank you very much.